Welcome to the Copilot Connection.
We're here to share with you all the news, insights, and capabilities of the Microsoft Copilot ecosystem from across the entire Microsoft stack. I'm Zoe Wilson, and I'm an exec at Avanade in our modern work business, an MVP for M365, a regional director, and Viva Explorer.
And I'm Kevin McDonnell. I'm also at Avanade, and I'm the Copilot and Strategy Lead, as well as being an MVP and Viva Explorer. And we'll be releasing episodes as podcasts on YouTube with insights from across the community and Microsoft on the different areas of Copilot, what they are, the impact they can make to you and your organization, what you need to do to prepare for them, or even how you can start implementing them now. And in fact, we may even occasionally touch on how to extend them.
So, this week we thought we'd talk about some of the new commercial Copilot updates, as well as take a bit of a look into what's happening at Ignite now that the session catalogue's been published.
And if we look a little distracted and put off, we've just changed platform, and it is completely throwing me on how things work, which is why the intro music did cut off a little bit briefly there, and I keep looking slightly perplexed for those who are looking on video. So hopefully the rest of this should run a little bit more smoother, and hopefully smoother than Copilot's been this week. But let's not comment too far on that before we get in trouble.
So, commercial Copilot updates, Kev. What news have we got for everyone?
Well, I think this is really quite exciting. It kind of came through slightly out of the blue and slightly confusing, but they released a blog out. When was it? On the 1st of October. And I think this really is the first time we've seen that input from Mustafa Suleiman and details there. So it's been fascinating seeing that come through as well. Let's see, is that as big as it's going to get? Yes. And Zoe, you immediately jumped onto something around the title there.
Yeah, so I know that we've talked before about some of the naming strategies or naming approaches at Microsoft, and when this was
mentioned,
when this was sent to me, it was by someone else actually who I've laughed about the naming strategy with, and the first thing that I noticed was Copilot Labs, not to be confused with Copilot Lab, which exists in the enterprise space.
So what do you mean these are different things?
Completely different things. So for those of you listening who aren't aware, Copilot Lab in Microsoft 365 Copilot is a way to find prompts and will be a way to share prompts and publish prompts with other people. What is Copilot Labs in the commercial space, Kevin?
So the first feature available in Copilot Labs is Think Deeper. No, I shouldn't just read this out on there, but it's kind of for those. Interesting, they said available to Copilot Pro users, and it's that early access to things. And they've kind of talked about two here. One is Think Deeper, and the other is Copilot Vision. Within there, I'm being very cautious about what I mention here and pausing slightly on there. But I think we can take the Think Deeper as being something really interesting that has kind of come out was it 401? 401 as the new Chat GPT model that's got that capability of reasoning over information. And that's going to be one of the things in the Copilot Lab. And I'm stuttering because I'm just thinking we should also include in the show notes a link to Abram Jackson.
I was just about to mention that.
But it was interesting because he said there he didn't have Copilot Pro, but he seemed to have access to this Think Deeper capability, and that's going to be the way you can kind of drill in and reason over things within there, which I'm kind of fascinated to see how people get to this, because you've almost got to be very specific around how you use it. And considering they're bringing this to the commercial market, I feel this is something that needs quite a bit of training and support and detail to understand why you would do this versus some other things. So I'm intrigued by this. I'm going to be honest here. I don't quite get this reasoning model and when you would use it, when it works and things like that. I haven't dug into it massively. I can I can understand where it is interesting, but I don't quite get the distinction around when this think deeper, this ability to reason through things, when you would use it, And I don't know if I want to know. I want Copilot to work it out for me. So it's going to be intriguing to see how this evolves as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to it's definitely going to be interesting, isn't it? And I think it's really interesting that that you think this will take a lot of support for people who are maybe not in the enterprise space so much as that consumer space, for them to be able to understand how to use this stuff. Um,
Mm,
I do wonder if that's just because we're still relatively early on this whole AI powered transformation. And as all of
yeah,
these products start to become more sophisticated and more intelligent, and as we start to see more agents that are able to do things for us and potentially work together and hand information off and things like that, what I'd have hoped that we see is that it becomes more and more intuitive, to the point where those who are maybe not as technically literate are able to actually get value out of it without requiring a lot of hand holding. I know we see a lot of need for adoption support in the enterprise space, but it'll be really interesting to see what that looks like from a consumer
yeah,
perspective.
absolutely agree. So definitely keen to see this evolve. I guess it's because this morning I had to explain to someone what on a client call what a hallucination was, and you can't. I thought everyone knew this now, and they're not AI connected, and it was me that was in the wrong of kind of making that assumption from there. But it's that reality of where people are as well, and the thought of having to say, yeah, the way you ask things has got to be different between these two. So you'll go here if you want to reason, here if you just want to ask a question. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of
it's interesting,
intrigued.
isn't it? I think sometimes though uh, we and people in roles like us, we need that reminder from people who are not in this tech
Yeah,
bubble that we're in. I
normal
think
people.
sometimes, I think it's good to get a bit of a reality check, because we live and breathe
Yeah,
this stuff. We do it for our jobs. We're interested in it from the perspective of the tech community and the stuff that we do as MVPs. But for a lot of people, it's on the periphery.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The other bit of Copilot Labs, and I'm going to switch around slightly the order. Maybe we show things in a sec, but um, that was mentioned in that same article was around Copilot Vision, and this I found far more intriguing and useful on there. Is Now, do you think? I think we're going to play the video and then we'll explain it a bit afterwards because it does have voice. So for those just listening, don't worry, you won't miss out too much on there, but you'll be able to go back and watch this. We'll share the video in the show notes, so you can go and catch it there as well. But let me share that and play the video and see what we think.
Hey, Copilot. I'm looking for a place to stay.
Let's take a look. What do you think of the locked house?
It's a bit pricey.
You are a bit bougie, aren't you?
I am not. I'm just looking for something nice. A little color on the walls, you know?
This one definitely has some color.
Wow. It's giving me a headache.
We don't want that. Wait, this one looks perfect. Minimal, modern, you.
You're right. I love it. We're booking it.
So, what did you think of that, Zoe?
I think it's super interesting, both in terms of what Copilot could potentially do now. And actually, I mean, I've not tested this yet, to be completely transparent, but I know people who have, and I know you've played around with it a little bit, haven't you, and had some fun with it.
I've played around with the new Copilot. With the new Copilot, not the Copilot Vision. So we'll
Yeah,
play that video in a sec.
yeah,
But the vision piece, that ability for it to recognize images and things, I'm fascinated to see. I know we were talking about whether we should go for a Copilot Pro license, and I'm like, I don't know if I can justify paying that. I might get it for a month to play around with, but it's
yeah. So I can.
intriguing.
So I've not played with it yet, so I can still get a free trial for it. So I'm considering getting the trial and just playing around. But there was part of me wondering if it was worth just waiting a little bit and seeing if anything else new drops into it.
Yeah.
But you can start to see with the combination of this and with the voice stuff, just how much more powerful it will start to become as a virtual assistant, and not just in the work context that we normally talk about, but in your personal life as well.
Well, I actually tell you what, I might play the second video And then let's talk about that, because this is something I have been using within there, especially around the kitchen and dinner table with the kids, to answer those really stupid questions that only kids seem to come up with, kids and clients possibly. So let me just share my screen and we'll play that video now.
Guess who's dog sitting? Which celeb does he remind you of?
Oh, he's totally one of the Chris's. You know, the one with the friendly eyes and that megawatt smile.
Nailed it. Obviously superhero material.
For sure. And his superpower? Puppy dog eyes.
He's begging me for walkies. Where's good around here?
I've got just the thing. Check out these awesome dog parks nearby.
So I think we're going to pretend that we just watched that live and we've just stopped it, and in no way did my machine go wrong. There, Zoe, what did you think of that one?
So again, I think it's just another powerful example of how Copilot's going to be able to help you in a new and different way. And I really like the conversational approach. I can see people using this when they're on the move. Imagine being able to have that kind of conversation in your car.
Yeah. Oh, that's another interesting we could talk about in a sec. But yeah, I've been using this quite a bit, as I mentioned just before, there at the dinner table and kind of answering questions to the kids. We often used to ask Alexa. You can ask that one. It's that one shot. Ask a question, you get an answer back. Maybe you ask another one, but it's not part of a conversation. But the fluidity of it is just so natural, and the voices, the kind of intonation, the way it speaks is just so natural on there. My only grumble so far is, and it's kind of nice, you can do this, you can interrupt it. So if it's talking too much, you can say, yeah, what about this? And it doesn't get upset. Well, at least not until Skynet takes over. My problem is that if people are talking in the background or the kids just don't shut up, then that interrupts it as well. So I'd love to see a little bit more intelligence, I think, in the interruptions, that it doesnn't just hear voice, it doesn't just hear noise, it actually reacts to what you're saying.
So almost like a stop command, something specific that you could say to get it to stop that bit and then give it another question, rather than it just stopping because there's general hubbub in the background.
No, I'd like it to be listening to me, and I haven't even thought about technology.
I'd
like to listen
to the whole room, though, isn't it?
But it should understand when I'm trying to talk to it and interrupt it, versus telling the kids shut up, sit down. Just a random example.
So when Skynet takes over and you've been telling the AI to sit down and shut up.
Yeah. Maybe that will help train it to that, but probably not. But no, it is very natural, and I'm really been really impressed by it. I love the design of it as well. It looks good. It doesn't, when Copilot came out, it was a box and it looked nice. I thought I liked some of the logos, but this is really beautiful to use. It's added that extra panache to it. So really intriguing.
Would you like to see any of these kind of features flip over into the enterprise world, or do you
quicker the better?
That was quite definite. Yeah, I was going to say, would you want the way it works with you to be different depending on whether it's personal life or work life?
That's a good one. I think there are differences in there, but I think it's been kind of interesting speaking with a few clients that looking at some of the prompts that people are doing, and they're a lot shorter, they're a lot briefer within there, and I wouldn't always want that conversation. I think I'd be probably a little bit ruder to it from work. Thinking about it a little bit more, less about me, more about other people, is if I'm sat in the office and some let's not kick off the explicit filter, someone is sat next to me talking to their Copilot non-stop, I'm not going to be happy with that. So we need to balance some of that a little bit. But I think it'd be very interesting. I think it's very interesting they're pushing that voice capability. If we look at things like Cortana and Alexa, they never really took off in a corporate situation because people weren't willing to do that. Will this change things? Will the natural ability of this actually integrate it a lot more? Could it, I sit most time here in this office with no one else here. could that always be on next to me so I can kind of ask it questions and have it interact while I'm doing things? Maybe. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so how about Microsoft Ignite? The session catalog went live this week.
It did. It did. And I, in no way, only had a look through about 5 minutes before we started recording so we could get this list together. But I did flick through a little bit and I did do a search, just see how many Copilot items are in there. I know you did the same when we had some intriguing numbers come up on that. And I think out of 577 sessions, there were 223 ones that said Copilot in the title. A little trick for anyone who wants to look at everything. If you set page size equals in the URL, you can actually get everything to come back in one. And I found there's 437 mentions of Copilot in the title or in the kind of initial summary on there. So I think it's fair to say AI and Copilot might be quite a popular topic that's going to be coming up in Ignite.
Yeah, there was some other interesting stuff as well when we looked at the numbers and kind of how many sessions were in kind of each solution area track. So out of that 577 sessions, and actually before we do the numbers, I think for those listening, it's just really important to recognize that at this Ignite, there's actually multiple events kind of running underneath the Ignite umbrella.
That's true.
So we've got the technical track, which is like the typical Ignite. We've got the partner track, which is more aligned to the Inspire conference that used to happen in person in July. And then there's a CIO track as well, although I don't think of any. I think the CIO sessions are not in the agenda yet. So so we've got 577 sessions, 42 agent sessions. One of the things that I thought was really interesting when I had a look through was there didn't seem to be a huge number of sessions talking about dynamics.
You're trying to get me to get myself in trouble by going, yeah, who cares about dynamics these days? But no, I wouldn't say things like that on there. Yeah, I think that's intriguing. But I think certainly some of the sessions that I dug into were about dynamics. And obviously there's a lot around Copilot Studio, and that's got a lot of links back to the kind of dynamics world. But I think very interesting that it's not mentioning that specifically. It's not that top level.
Yeah.
And I know there's... Well, they don't have the BizApps conference anymore, do they? But there are other events that are a bit more BizApps focused. But even so surprising.
Even in the BizApps track, I think the majority of them were around Power Platform, Copilot Studio, that kind of thing. With probably only about 20% of them actually being core dynamics, which I think just shows that kind of shift in focus. Which is interesting, really. What were some of the other key topics that you...
Just quickly before I wonder, I might do a quick search now. How many of them say SharePoint? I kind of feel that Dynamics is probably that similar sort of thing. 17 sessions, actually, more than I thought. Damn, that threw into that theory. But I think in the way that SharePoint's kind of that content manager powering things underneath, it's that digital core of content, similar to Dynamics. It's there, it's powering things away. It's what you're doing with that data and that information that's key, rather than that system itself right now. So I would say, having mocked Dynamics at the beginning, it's still vitally important to be able to get those things together and flow in there. It's not disappearing. It's just that there's different focus right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And talking of focus, what were some of the other key topic areas?
Well, one thing I noticed is they have the keynote. Obviously, Satcher's... I assume it's there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they've said he will be there in person doing the keynote. But alongside him is Charlie Bell, who looks after the security side of things. And I know security is a massive focus for Microsoft at the moment. They're trying to bring back that perception that they are a secure way of working. And the fact they're bringing Charlie into that keynote, he's the second name down in there. That says a lot to me, that is a really important point from it.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's listening who works in the partner space, that's probably not a surprise because we know that for this year for Microsoft, security is one of their key objectives, along with Copilot on every device and a few other things. So it's not surprising, and actually, I think it just demonstrates how fundamentally important security is for the widespread adoption of all of this AI stuff that Microsoft are pushing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing caught my attention, we touched on agents there, mentioned a lot with this kind of rename of extensibility and plugins all being under this big agent banner, Salesforce talking about their agents. That wasn't surprising. What caught my eye going through the sessions a bit more is that the number of times it mentioned multi-agent. And I think that's going to be a fantastic view of things. It's not just the power of the agency is not in that individual item. It's how it talks to others. How do you connect those worlds together? How do you bring all these different kind of atomic needs into a wider program of work from there? So there's a few sessions that I think will cover that, both from, well, I'm hoping from a technology point of view, how to build it, but also how do you think about that? How do you build out your plan and your strategies around that as well? So that multi-agent view will be very interesting to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see a few sessions as well talking about some of the on-device AI and Copilot PCs and some of the new innovations that are coming in that space. So I think that's going to be quite an interesting space to watch because the AI PCs, the ones that kind of offload the AI processing locally, is a fairly new category of consumer device, really. So I think we're probably just at the beginning of what that will allow us to do.
Yeah, and I know Paul Bullock that we work with, fellow MVP, we chat to quite a bit. He's got one of those Copilot Plus PCs, and he's looking to kind of explore how he can build out some of those offerings, how you can develop, and certainly there'll be a lot of sessions there for him. But I think it's that he's the foundation, he's the capability. How can we actually do things with that? I think we're probably looking a year, 18 months away from the reality of a lot of that and it actually landing and working well. But all the 5.3 stuff, the small language models all play into that story. And I don't think it's something that the other big vendors are focusing on. I know there's been talk about was it OpenAI having their own chip and things like that on there. But this does feel like another area where Microsoft could see a bit of a march, possibly Apple as well. I touched on earlier talking at the dinner table, and I'm not going to mention its name because it will trigger off on my phone, but I've been playing around with Apple Intelligence, and the kind of natural language of that has been really quite powerful. I'm loving the way it summarizes some of the notifications on there. So it
also
feels
a little
like
bit amusing as well in some instances.
It can be amusing, yes. I'm trying to think of ones I can talk about without getting in trouble, but yes, it's been quite funny. I know I've sent a few people some of those summaries that have come through, and generally spot on as well in terms of how it summarizes it. But I think it maybe that Apple is I haven't tried it on my Mac Mini actually. I'd love to hear from anyone who's tried Apple Intelligence on the Mac as well. But that kind of bringing together of that local plus cloud, I think that's going to be another area that we see things move ahead in as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we did pull together a few of the sessions that we thought looked particularly interesting and maybe worth you taking a look at and adding to your session builder when that finally goes live.
Yeah, and no, actually, you made a point there, and I think that's a really important one. That right now, yes, you can see the session catalog, but you can't tick your favorites, even if you have registered, whether in person or remote. You can't start adding those to your catalog right now, so you could see everything. Yeah, apparently you can still write things down on a piece of paper or in Excel. That is allowed, but you can't go through and put these. So what we thought we'd do is to share that and actually bring that forward and I'm just getting the right one, and give you some of the codes. So you'll see from these codes, which I hope are going to come up any second now, that you can search for those. So things like BRK 170, etc., etc. If you put that into the session catalog, you can very easily get to those.
Okay, so agents. I'll let you talk about this one, Kevin.
Yep. I have been, the quick side tip, you may notice I occasionally deviate. I've been watching Slow Horses at the moment. This is nothing to do with secret agents. This is very much about autonomous uses of Gen AI within there. And there's a couple of great labs going on there about building, extending agents with Copilot Studio. Was that the one with Dan Laskovitz and April Dunham? I probably should have had that sheet next to me.
Hang on.
We'll check that in a sec on there, but there's various ones on there. I do know that the second one we've got on here, Code First Development Workshop for Copilot Agents. That is a friend of the show and friend of mine, Gary Trinder, is involved in that with someone else who's, again, I've forgotten now, but I know Gary's in there. So there's a set of labs for those, only for those who are in person at Ignite in Chicago, and also another one around declarative agents, building agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And what I found interesting with these is there's that build with Copilot Studio, that low code story, but then this phrase which I've seen crop up in a few of the different sessions around code first as well, that it seems to be this new name that's appeared for pro code within there. So it'd be interesting to go there, and whether, you know, it says code first. What do you do afterwards? Is that beer afterwards? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think we've seen this like this paradigm shift towards low code over the past few years. Is it that, you know, some of the complexity of the things that you need to think around, that you need to build around the you know, the API call to the LLM, is all of those other things? Are we back to like the pro code realm where we actually need to approach it with a greater level of complexity or something like that? I mean, I'm not a developer, so I'm probably the worst person to be talking about this. But that first session, that was April and Dan, by the way. The build and extend with Copilot Studio.
So I think what I like is that they've got those two labs. There's going to be two ways of doing this. And I know there's various sessions on what you should use when, but it gives options. And to me, that's the most important thing. It did feel at one point that Copilot Studio was almost being pushed as the only way of extending and the only way of building these things. This is saying, no, there's alternatives that you can bring to this, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, there was a really interesting video that I saw on LinkedIn yesterday, which was showing how to use a prompts to build a declarative Copilot.
Oh yes,
but then when you start to look at the custom engine Copilots, you know, that's definitely kind of the pro code route, isn't it? So again, I think it's just like levels of complexity.
Yes, yeah, probably is. Yeah, I don't know whether you build a Copilot into Copilot Studio, whether that's a conversation for another time before I go off on one too much thinking about that. What I did like was these other two near the bottom here. So one, reinventing business processes with autonomous agents. I think that's going to be a very big field, that autonomous, that process side of things. I think we're going to see that automation being a very interesting topic within there, how you can bring that AI into those business side of things as well. And then a nice example of that, of smarter workflows with ServiceNow Now Assist. That's a lot of nows in there, and Copilot integration, which kind of touches a little bit on that custom Copilot integration. You know, ServiceNow have their own assistant that can be in there, almost a custom Copilot in its own. And what Microsoft's saying is you can bring that into your own Copilot worlds as well. So it's one of the things I enjoy about Microsoft for years and years. It was always that kind of ability with Windows that you could expand your PC. You weren't just stuck with that ecosystem. You could connect to other things. We've seen it with Teams even more so. And that's continuing here. It's not saying you have to move everything over to Copilot. You can still get the benefit of things like ServiceNow, like Salesforce, like Workday, and their own AI capabilities all within that kind of single experience on there. So we'll definitely be, well, I was about to say we'll definitely be watching that one. We should double check. I see that's ODFP 974. So I'm hoping that's not just an in-person one. We'll double check that and make sure we're clear on that in the show notes about what's in person and what you'll be able to watch remotely.
Yeah, I would just add as well that for those who are listening rather than watching, we will include all of the session codes in the show notes as well. And I know those of you watching can see them on the screen, but we'll make sure that you've got those to find these sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. So should we jump across to the next set of ones? Oh, look, the morph did work nicely there to make it look a bit prettier for those watching on video. There was a few around, I've called it M365 and Copilot. It's kind of those related modern work side of things on there. Did any of these particularly jump out at you, Zoe?
Yeah, so the SharePoint content management one, Reimagine with Copilot, that's the Jeff Tooper session. I imagine that's going to be a really great session. When you look at the session description, he talks about SharePoint, OneDrive, SharePoint Advanced Management. So I'm hoping that we see some of these really nice content services, evolutions coming through. And we'll probably see some of that in the keynote, but I think you always get a little bit more meat on the bone when you actually go to the sessions with the product group leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we said we've just finished talking about agents, but hopefully we'll see some SharePoint agents brought up there as well.
Yeah, the other one, I know you found this in the catalogue, but the other one that I think is really interesting is that second one in this list, which is the Microsoft 365 Copilot Advantages. How does it compare with other AI solutions? And I feel like it will be really interesting to actually see the Microsoft perspective on this.
Yeah, it wasn't quite clear from the session description on exactly, are they going to be comparing Gemini and Einstein with M365 Copilot? I'm kind of hoping so, that it will go to that sort of level of detail on there, or whether it's going to be talking about building yourself versus bringing other ones. I mean, it does say highlighting how it stands out from other AI offerings in the market within there. And I'm really hoping for this one, this is something that can be used for people who are still considering M365 Copilot, not sure which to use, that it will give that added benefit it brings. And it was with Seth Patton as well, who's quite a big name to be included on that session. This isn't a small kind of side, someone quickly scribbling things together on there. This is putting a big name behind that, which I think will be intriguing.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting.
I think the other one there was grounding M365 Copilot in your business knowledge. One of my things I truly love are graph connectors, where you can bring in all that outside information. And I know there has been a message center update that there's going to be a few more of the canned ones. I think ServiceNow Knowledge and what's that thing called? Zendesk and Zoom was listed in there. So you'll be able to more easily connect to that other information. Throw that in with the fact that every licensed organization has 50 million index items from that. I definitely recommend people to take a look at that one. I'd also recommend people to use Copilots for when they're copying and pasting, and especially to put things in order, because otherwise, and I think Zoe is smiling and has just noticed this as well, you end up duplicating the same thing twice in a slightly different list. So BRK 280.
I noticed this as soon as you went onto the slide. I was smiling because you just spotted it.
So yeah, this was unlocking smart collaboration with Microsoft Teams. I'm hoping you picked this one, because I can't remember what this one was now.
I can't remember either. We looked at so many sessions, didn't we, in the hour before we started recording. What do we have on the next slide?
So just had a quick look at this one. This is about investments in your security, simplicity, and flexibility of the future with Teams. So it's going to have live demo of Teams, Copilot, and Microsoft Places, bringing things together. And it is Ilya. You see, I've read his name a lot, but can't say it. Ilya Buchstein, I think it is, who I know has done a lot with Teams devices. So I'm sure there will be plenty in there about bringing things together as well. So it's not just going to be collaboration in the SharePoint sense. I imagine talking and voice will
Yeah.
play into there too.
It's interesting as well because they've got the places bit in there. Do you and this is pure speculation, I've got no insight into any of this, but do you see a scenario where where an organization has places configured and people are using it, you could actually query with Copilot? So I could ask Copilot if you're going to be in the office and where you're sat, and use it to book a desk for me and that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. I think is the answer. I was thinking more of being of kind of organisers being able to work out, do we have enough desks? What are the bad days? What's the kind of common patterns? And having that natural language way of talking through some of that data as well, I think would be very interesting. But let's be honest, any Microsoft product is going to have Copilot in there if it doesn't already. So yes, I think is the answer to that one.
Yeah, they definitely need to talk to us to get the ideas for the product, I think, don't they? Okay, so what do we have on the other slide? So I want to call out one actually, which I think will be fantastic, which is a little bit different from some of the other sessions. And that's the bottom one on this list, empowering neurodivergent employees with Copilot. And this is a bit of a passion topic of mine anyway, but Jenny Leigh Fleury from Microsoft, who's the Chief Accessibility Officer, is on the panel. Jenny's deaf, and she is absolutely incredible, because I think we both saw her present at Future Decoded in London a few years ago, where she did the keynote, and it was just so incredible listening to her talk about how she's overcome her hearing, and the adaptations and things like that, and the role that she plays in making sure that the technology that Microsoft are producing is inclusive. So that will be a really great session, I think.
Yeah, really, really interesting, that one. And also the fact they've got some of the UK Home Office as well. So for those from the UK feeling, bringing a bit of it home to Chicago as well. So it's not just talking theory, it's talking about the reality of what it's meant to organisations as well. I know those sessions often go down well. So yeah, really interesting, that one. Jumping back to the top of the list, this one caught my attention. It's got Fabric in there, it's got AI, it's got Copilot, but it was actually that to code first. So the session's THR 618, so one of the theatre sessions, from Copilot to code first, the power of Microsoft Fabric and AI, and kind of seemed to be suggesting it was more about the development side and bringing that data together with coding as well, which is really interesting. So I don't know massive amounts more about that, but it caught my eye as well. And then we got a couple more we touched on earlier, the Copilot Plus PC side. So there was a bring on device, ML, which I'm hoping is machine learning, to enterprise apps with the Windows Copilot library, and also Copilot Plus PCs, your new superpower. So I think there were a few other sessions, but those around that kind of on device side of things that was really interesting. But those ones particularly caught my eye.
Yeah, and there's a few others on the agenda as well. There were quite a few security sessions as well, so different Microsoft Security Copilot. Interesting that they're still calling it custom plugins here. I don't know if we'll see that terminology change, or if they'll continue to be plugins in that security Copilot context.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one, I've just noticed as a lab, so only those lucky people like yourself who are going will be able to go to this, but build real-time collab experiences with Fluid and Copilot. So for people who don't know, Fluid is the kind of technology that's used by Loop to bring that real-time updates from things. So bringing that in with Copilot, it's intriguing.
Yeah, I think it's used for like the collaborative sharing experiences as well, isn't it, in Teams?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
so,
interesting to see what they do with that one.
I have to say, I'm quite glad I'm not at Ignite, because choosing which of those labs I'd find time to go to would be virtually impossible.
Yeah, well, choosing which of the sessions, and who to network with, who to speak to. Yeah, and talking
and making time for deep pan pizzas as well. All the high important things.
Well, you've got if you're going all the way to Chicago, you've got to make time for the the Chicago delicacies.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, talking of events, we've got another event coming up in the next week, haven't we, Kev? Where are we going?
I forgot for
It's
a
not
minute.
a trick question, by
It's
the
like,
way.
what? Oh, yes. Yes, we are off to Aberdeen for the Scottish Summit.
Yeah, and for those of you who are coming to Scottish Summit, we are hosting a very special panel as the Copilot Connection, which is called Connecting the Copilots. And we've got a number of special guests who will be joining us. I think it's about 90 minutes, the session, isn't it? Which gives lots
It
of
is,
time for Q&A, lots of time for you all to bring your hard questions. And I'm really excited about the guests that we've got joining us on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got the I don't know how to describe her. There's no words to describe the magic that is Donna Sarker from there, who brings so much kind of Copilot extensibility magic from it. Uh, Hopefully we can get her to talk about some of her side hustles. We can sneak some of those into there, but there'll be plenty of chance to get some questions from there as well.
Yeah, and then we're also joined by Chris Huntingford, Jose Pinos, and Sarah Fenner. So a really nice mix of skills and experiences and focus areas. And I think it's going to be a great discussion. And you've got another session, haven't you? What else are you talking about?
I do. I've got a really interesting session. Why I was partly late from speaking to Zoe and recording today was speaking with Simon Owen, because we're doing a joint session on using a centre for enablement to help with your Copilot strategy. So thinking not just about centre of excellence, where you've kind of got all that techie good stuff there, but how you can actually enable people. And he's come of it from that power platform perspective. He's spoken on this a while, but really now we're talking about what this means to the Copilot, and especially Copilot extensibility and agents from there as well. So really looking forward to that one.
So yeah, it will be absolutely brilliant. And we do have a Copilot Connection competition that will be running for those who are there in person. We'll be sharing details of that on social over the next couple of days. So if you are going to Scottish Summit,
do we want to announce it now? We probably should have talked about this beforehand. I think we should. I was just getting very distracted
if
trying to find the picture.
Card ready, let's announce it.
Let me just bring it up. So I think it's worth saying we're going to have a nice video. I mean, spending far too long going through all the old clips and finding our fun videos and even some of the outtakes from there to bring up. So you will find us. You will find our faces appearing around, smiling and dancing around to a certain degree. So we thought, as part of that, we want people to scan the QR code that will be on the video and get a photo next to it within there, and then share it on the socials. I'm sure I've missed something along there that Zoe will catch me in a sec, but we want people to do those things. So scan the QR code, share it to socials, the photo of you next to that sign. And not only will you get the joy of being able to share things, but we're also putting a competition in for it as well. And there is the chance to win some Lego, because what is a conference if you're not sharing Lego from there as well? So we've got some lovely, they're not cacti. What's the lovely word beginning with D? From it, Zoe, that I'm suddenly going to forget. Anyway, they're the mini cactus.
Little Lego plants.
Yes. Yeah. And I know these are good. These are so good. Actually, I better not tell this story because my son listens to it. But remind me, if you bump into me in Scottish Summit, ask why I don't have this Lego set, and my son does on there. So you can ask that question as well.
Brilliant.
But it is Friday afternoon and we do have a few more things to do, so we should probably wrap up now.
Yes, that sounds like a plan. Let's get the weekend started and have some time to get ready for the long trip to Aberdeen next week.
Absolutely. And if you are listening to us on your way to Aberdeen, please tweet about it, put it out on LinkedIn, share with your friends. And if you're listening to us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on all your favorite podcast app, we're on X, LinkedIn. We're not on Facebook, but we decided that was a bit weird. But generally, we're all over the place. So please hunt us down, subscribe, and ask other people to as well. And if you fancy giving us a review in your favorite podcast app, that would always go down well as well.
Brilliant. So thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to talking to you more soon.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.